You're listening to the CD Baby DIY Music Podcast. All right, well, welcome to another edition of the CD Baby DIY Musician Podcast. This is our Roundtable episode, so of course I have Chris and Robert here with me. Say hello, guys.
Hiya.
How's everyone doing? Doing well?
Very well.
It's Friday.
It's Friday, that's right, but it won't be Friday by the time they listen to this.
That's
so
true.
They could dream about
It'll
it being
be what,
Friday.
Tuesday? Monday?
Hopefully.
Oh, dear.
Could be any day.
But we've got lots of stuff in this edition. First, we're going to open up with a little news from Chris and Robert. Then we've got our interview recap from the last episode where we talked to Amy McCullough, the music editor at the Willamette Week here in Portland. Then we'll move on to some mistakes stories. You guys have been lighting up our phone line, and we appreciate it, so we've got a lot of good stuff there. And we'll finish it off with some fan feedback, some of your emails that you've been sending in with questions and comments. So let's get it going.
In my hand, I have a newspaper article here by Luciana Lopez, who writes for The Oregonian in Portland. And she did a story on something that's that I've been thinking a lot about lately, which is the effect of soaring gas prices on touring. It hurts. And it's definitely sort of made me rethink a lot of what I'm going to be trying to do this fall with my own touring, but she mentions a few Portland bands and some of the ways that they're dealing with it. There's one band called Apollo Sunshine that's converting their van to run on vegetable oil. Be cool if they could convert their band to run on vegetable oil.
We just drink vegetable oil.
There's another guy, Mike D, in town who's actually just flat out canceling all his dates.
Oh.
Too expensive for him. And then the most creative one is this band called Blind Pilot, who's actually doing a West Coast tour on their bicycles, not motorcycles.
Wow.
So they're
How in the world do they do that?
they're making little cargo carts to put their upright bass, and the drummer can basically fold his drum set into itself. He's got one of those collapsible kits.
Oh, okay.
So they'll just be tugging some cargo behind them.
See,
Wow.
Normally you go on tour to get fat off of eating the junk food at truck stops.
It's all about Denny's, yeah.
Come back.
They're going to be
fit.
super shape, and
That sounds great.
Apparently, it's they're trying to set a goal of 60 miles between each city they play.
wow,
So
that's going to be tough.
it's a long bike ride and then a show at the end of the day.
You're definitely not going east when you have to cross the desert on a
Right.
bike for several hundred
Yeah.
miles with no cities.
I mean, I'm a little curious where they'll go between Eugene and Chico.
60
Well,
miles.
Medford, you got to stop
Medford,
Medford.
Ashland, yeah.
But it'd be cool to hear if anyone else has got some interesting ideas of how they've been dealing with the high gas prices, because that is kind of a huge factor. I can't imagine having to fill up an entire tour bus, because those things just eat up the gas.
I think I might have mentioned this before, but a guy that used to work at CD Baby, Trevor, has come up with 5 rules of touring, or economic touring, so you can support yourself. And I don't know what they all are, but the first one is to
Stay home.
Stay home. No, to never play in big cities, so that you're avoiding these oversaturated markets, and then also you're playing in smaller towns, which are closer together to more appreciative people. But his second rule is, whenever you can, hitchhike.
Wow.
So, if you're a solo artist...
Maybe
and
in the good old days of the 50s and 60s, you could hitchhike now. I'd be a little scared.
And then another guy at CD Baby out in the warehouse is leaving for the summer to tour by... we don't recommend this at home, but he's going to be hopping trains, which is highly illegal, but...
But
I've always
highly
wondered.
inexpensive.
Yeah.
I've always wondered if people still do that.
He's
we're
doing it.
right here at CD Baby. We are right next door to some very busy train tracks, and I'm always surprised I don't see someone going by on a boxcar. Seems
Well, we'll see him
we're in the
departing.
prime
We
spot
can
for
wave
people to
goodbye.
be jumping on the boxcar too, but I've never seen it. How about this? You find an open boxcar, set up in the boxcar, and play while you're going through the city.
So everyone in the country can get like a 13-second
Yeah,
concert.
like, oh, that's cool. There goes the band. You put a sign with your web address on the side of the car.
You got that nice Doppler thing too, where the pitch keeps going up and then down.
That's true. So yeah, if anyone has their creative stories of how they're dealing with the gas prices and touring, and send us an email. We'd love to hear about it. So Robert, you've got a story there that you found online.
Yeah, this is actually an article that made national news, even though it does have to do with Portland, Oregon. Fred Meyer, this...
It's kind of like a target, like a super target for people outside of the Northwest that don't know what Fred Meyer is.
And they're all over the place. And basically an employee who was intending to order this CD-DVD edition of REM's latest release, Accelerate, accidentally checked the LP box when ordering the album, and some big boxes of the vinyl discs actually showed up in several stores, and some of the stores sent them back, but then a handful of the stores put them on the shelf, and at one of these stores, 20 LPs sold in the first day. That was enough for Fred Meyer to say, hey, maybe we're onto something, and they started stocking records.
I heard they tested it in Oregon, Washington, and Alaska, right? And it did well enough that all their stores are now going to have vinyl. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
And that's pretty cool. I mean, it's just somebody made a simple mistake. Suddenly the store's ordering in a bunch of vinyl. So it kind of goes to show that there's always going to be a market for some sort of physical product. I mean,
Totally.
And there's definitely been a resurgence in vinyl. In fact, Dylan here at CD Baby, who has his own label, he likes to have some vinyl of some of the albums that he has on his label, and all the places that press vinyl are way behind schedule just because they've been inundated with orders. So
Really?
That's kind of a cool resurgence.
So yeah, I mean, I think that you just can't write off the physical product just because maybe people are just downloading instead of CDs. I think you just have to get creative, and maybe there's some sort of untapped market out there that
and records are fun and interactive, like you actually have to do something besides push a button to actually make a record play, and there's just more sort of intimacy in that particular medium.
Well, that was the era when people sat and listened to an album all night. That's what they did. They listened to records. They'd go over to people's houses and hang out and listen to music, where now, even though we're inundated with more music, it's usually more of a background thing. Even in your car with your friends, you're generally talking over it, or at a club, everyone's talking over it, and people don't go and just sit and listen.
Well, think about how much it draws your attention when you have to actually go get up and change the sides of the record. It draws your attention right back to the music that's at hand, to the experience that you're having.
And you have to think more about how the artist has structured the song sequence based on the two sides and all that kind of stuff.
And these are not just, it's not just DJ music either. There's like Beatles albums that are selling really well.
Yeah. Dylan's label has the vinyl on My Morning Jacket, one of their older albums. Actually, I think his license for that just went up, so he's a little disappointed because they're huge right now.
Yeah.
but so yeah, those bands like that, a lot of bands have stuff on vinyl, and it's not just for DJs to, it's for, people that are just wanting to listen on vinyl. They do have a sound quality that is better than a lot of listening formats, far better than MP3. That's for sure.
They sure are a pain to tour with, though.
Yeah, they'll melt fast. So
they take up a lot of space too.
All right, well, those are a couple interesting stories, and so now let's move on to a little recap of the interview we had with Amy McCullough, the music editor from the Willamette Week, and I have to say I thought it was very interesting. It's always, I think, interesting to talk to somebody who can be considered a gatekeeper, whether it be a club booker or someone who's a music editor like Amy, or someone that you're blindly sending your music to, or sending emails to and trying to get their attention. It's always interesting to hear what they have to say. So did anything stand out for you guys?
I heard my name in the middle of the interview. That stood out.
Is that all you got from it,
That's
Chris?
all. Yeah. I was struck by that sense of, weird. People are talking about me. Besides myself.
Besides
yourself.
He was just sitting there going, mention me.
Say Chris.
Sweet.
She seemed very accommodating and sort of like if you come to the newspaper with your band, you let us know this sort of information, like you'll probably get some sort of write-up or mention or whatever, as long as you know.
Yeah, don't show up to the office pretending to have a gun like the one guy did.
Well, you have to consider a certain amount of factors, one being the timeliness of your event in relation to what's going on around it, the amount of lead time you're giving the paper, notice, and then also just like kind of trying to pitch it in a way where it sounds like a unique happening of sorts, so they want to write about it. And
one thing that she kind of mentioned that I hadn't really thought of a whole lot is the timeliness for the paper. I mean, the paper like the Willamette Week and just about every city in America has this kind of weekly paper. Here in Portland, we have two, but weekly paper that's more arts, culture, some news stories. But they have other news stories going on or events in the city, some music, some not even music related, that are taking up space. And if it's a big event that goes on in your town every year, trying to get their attention that week is probably not a good one, because the music section may be losing half its real estate in the paper due to, some big event, yearly event. I saw her originally on a panel, Amy, that is, on a panel with a bunch of different music writers for Portland papers. It was really cool just to see how they all differed in their opinions, and Amy mentioned it in the interview where some of them absolutely hated receiving CDs, but Amy loves receiving CDs because she's got everything organized. She said she has it all lined up and knows where everything is, where this other editor just wanted stuff by email, and that's the only way she wanted it. So it's good to find out how people want stuff.
And whereas we have the advantage of actually interviewing her and getting the information so that, we know ahead of time what she likes, there's still ways of attaining that information for the editor in your town, an email or a phone call, maybe before you submit the work, to find out what their preferred, format is, if they want a MP3, if they want an email, if they want a package or whatever.
Right. It's similar to how they want to receive the content would be, how do they like to be approached? Because I know some of these people like really sort of formal and polite emails or letters with all the specific press quotes and everything spelt out, and other people really respond well to like, hey, Amy, what's up? I got a show. Here's my link. Like very simple and casual, and finding that balance with each different writer could be a little weird. But
and finding that stuff out could be as simple as talking to bands that you've been seeing in those papers. Say,
Totally.
How did you get through to them? And one thing that was interesting at that panel where I saw Amy and all those other editors is they took questions, and some people said, hey man, you wrote about our band, gave us a raving review, just loved us, and we've contacted you since then and not been hearing anything. What do we need to do? Are we annoying you? Are we contacting you too much, not enough?
Yeah.
And it was a guy from a different paper than Amy writes for, and he just said, no, it's just, I can't respond to everybody, but I want you to keep telling me, I know you're there, and if I liked you, we'll give it time before we write about you again, but we still want to know what's going on. So let's move on to some mistake stories. We have our little listener line, and you guys have been calling it like crazy, and it's been fun hearing everyone's mistake stories. Fortunately, we don't have time to share all of them, but we picked some highlights, and we're going to share with you guys right now.
Hey, this is Jordan Beal, and I'm a CD Baby artist, and I definitely have a story of when I goofed. I had recorded about 12 songs on a computer digitally, and had about 100 hours or so into it and had not backed it up, and the computer crashed. So I lost so much time and effort and great music, and it was just a bad situation. So, lesson learned, always save and back up to possibly like an external hard drive or even to disk or something like that. That's my lesson learned. Hope you can learn from it. My website is cdbaby.com/JordanBeal or myspace.com/JordanBealMusic. Thanks.
Hi guys, this is Dave Jackson from the Musicians Cooler at musicianscooler.com. My favorite mistake story wasn't really my mistake, but I got to observe it. I'm from Ohio. We were playing a football Hall of Fame thing, and we were kind of on the, make a stage out of a trailer kind of thing, and they'd put up a railing on this thing, and they had rigged a whole bunch of floodlights above this truck trailer, and then decided to plug them all into the same extension cord, which was wrapped in circles near my side of the stage. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden this guy's trying to get my attention, and he's like, "Man, I think you're on fire." And I look over, and a couple feet from my feet, the extension cord was smoking profusely, probably minutes away from busting into flames. So we got somebody to get, because I'm playing, and didn't want to stop, and we got somebody to go and figure out where it was plugged into and unplug it and do that thing out. But it's one of those things that, it was kind of stupid, and we got to play in the dark for a song while they figured out another place to plug it in and found another extension cord. But that's a pretty dumb one. Plugging all your lights into one thing, not to mention the fact that you should always test your lights before the sun goes down in the event they're going to pop a fuse, but that's another story. Thanks, guys. Love the podcast, and we'll talk at you later.
Hi, this is Michelle Carr, a CD Baby member. One of the ways that I goofed in making my CD is that I got 5,000 printed up, not realizing that the digital age was taking over and most people would be downloading my CDs through the internet. So now I'm sitting here in my apartment with boxes and boxes of CDs because I got too many printed. So the moral of the story is you can always make more, but don't get 5,000 made if you're in a small indie label. Again, this is Michelle Carr. Thank you.
Hey, this is Big Vic, and I wanted to share one of my early learning experiences when dealing with contracts and record deals. A while back, I met with a studio engineer / producer who worked for an up-and-coming record label. I let him hear a few tracks I was working on, and he thought they were good enough to take to his boss, who was the CEO of the record label. They agreed that the work was good enough to grant me some spec time in their fully equipped, state-of-the-art studio. Now, spec time is basically time paid for by the record label. They wanted to grant me enough spec time to produce a 3-song demo, and if at the end of the 3-song project the material was good enough, they would work out a contract for me to do an album. Great. I handled all the pre-production at home and walked into the studio with 3 completely written, sequenced, and fully produced tracks. Everything was already sequenced and all the accompaniments were done, but the purpose of using their studio was to just juice up the sounds and give it the professional audio quality that my equipment at home couldn't create. The only thing the engineer had to do was import my song files into their system and replace my bass sounds with their bass sounds, my guitar sounds with their guitar sounds, my keyboards with theirs, and so forth. We ended up with one of the best projects of my career, and I was offered the coveted record deal. Problem: I was to be given no credit as a producer, which is really my stock in trade. According to the deal, all production credits were going to go to the studio engineer. Not to take away from his hard work, but my exact words were, when you can walk into a studio and play these songs from scratch on your own, then you can say you produced these songs. Until then, I'm not signing anything like that, any kind of contract like that. I was fine with walking away from the deal, but didn't realize that because the tracks were made on spec time, basically time paid for by that record label, the record label owned the masters, and I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't shop the material, and without my permission, they couldn't release it. In hindsight, this is still some of the best music I've ever created, but because of that stalemate, no one got to hear it, and no one got to benefit from it. I don't know if I can honestly say I regret the decision, but I can definitely say there are no real winners in a situation like that. So I hope this helps someone out there avoid any similar pitfalls. Again, I'm Big Vic, and I have a new CD available on CD Baby. Check it out at cdbaby.com/CD/Big Vic. That's BIGVIK, or my website at bigvicpresents.com. Thanks a lot.
And I don't think he mentioned it, whether or not he got the contract up front with the last call, Big Vic, but that's
a common one, though.
That's a common one. That comes up a lot. I mean, it's important that you get all that stuff in writing. I think now more than ever, just because it's so easy. It's easy for someone to take what you've done, like in that case where he pretty much had produced everything already, was just really needing them to sweeten up the sounds. I'm guessing it was more of a, I don't know what kind of music. It sounds like it was probably a lot of MIDI stuff, where it's just a lot of just sound replacement type things. So the arrangements are already there, and the deal he signed kept him from being able to ever release it, which that's a bummer.
Wow. So he couldn't, because of the contract, do you think he could have taken the original stuff that he made at home and take it to a different studio?
Probably.
I would imagine so.
Yeah, I mean that's. But you know,
you'd have to go through the whole thing of
Yeah.
paying and re-recording it all.
Right.
And then Jordan Beal, his call about his computer crashing. That's very common. I'm hearing a lot. I had a friend that said that if something didn't exist in 3 places, it didn't exist at all. So, so yeah, buy a couple extra external hard drives, back up your music. So, but anyway, there's some the faulty wiring story I've been playing where smoke has started to come out of things.
And it wasn't because you're awesome
funny.
guitar playing.
No, it wasn't. And it's funny, you know, when you're in a bigger band that has production that you're on tour with, on your concert rider, you're telling people there must be an electrician there to tie you into the system. And so many times they try to cut that corner. First of all, I think it's technically by law they have to tie that kind of stuff in. I don't think you're legally allowed to, because when you're tying into like the whole circuit board thing, I mean, if you're not authorized and something goes down, the insurance won't cover it. But so many people would try to skimp on that, and you can just have so many problems if you don't wire things correctly. And electricity can kill. Take that one home with you.